So I am like so jealous of all of your travel and everything. I've always wanted to go to the Shakespeare Festival, and every time we go into Utah, we see all the signs for it and everything, and that's always just looked so cool to me. So I hope that was awesome, but it was amazing. And yes, like I said, super jealous of your Hawaii plans. So in the meantime, I guess we'll do some music. And I'll start with theory. Everything, like I said in the email that you sent me, I've had time to actually watch it since I responded to you, but everything looks really good. So what you did send is looking great. The theory, we had 40 and 41, and I did want to pull that up here. Let's see. So page 40 was perfect. And page 41, we have just a couple little things. It looks like just little mistakes that as soon as I point them out, it's one of those things, as most theory mistakes are, that's like, oh, well, how did I not catch that? So very little things. I don't think anything is actually a gap in knowledge there. So if we look at the first example, that's the B flat major scale that they wanted you to write in. And again, the only thing that we missed here is really little. On your E flat chord, we also need to put the flat sign for the B on top. So your notes where you have the Roman numeral 4 should be E flat, G natural, and then B flat on top. But we got the B flat at the bottom of the chord. We just missed it on the other B flat that we would have for the E flat chord. And then there were just a few little things on your measures below that. So the next thing was on the D major example. So when you had to just fill in the primary triads for each key there, it looks like your bass clef chords just got off by one ledger line there. So your D chord for bass clef is perfect. Your G chord, it looks like we added the ledger line and started it on E. So your notes there are E, G, B when we want G, B, D. And then for the A chord, same thing. It looks like we just got off by one, and it probably just didn't even register because you're still following all the same patterns and all of your other patterns on the chords are correct. It was just that one that got off a little bit on the ledger lines. And then the G and the F examples were great. B flat major, we actually had the same thing that happened on the scale. We just needed to show a flat sign for the B on the E flat chord. I know it's just a lot of letter names here. But yeah, when you have the 4 chord, it's an E flat chord, so you want your notes to be E flat, G, and then B flat again on top. And then C major on the very last one. Here, your 5 chord in the key of C is the G chord, and it actually looks like you may have wanted that top note to be the D, but it's spaced really far up, and that may partially be because of working on America the Beautiful and having some of the 5/7 chords, but it looks more like it's an F there, so that your notes would actually be G, B, and F instead of G, B, D. So you just want to make sure that your ledger line sits right smack dab between those two notes so that it looks very clearly like the D is sitting on top of the ledger line where middle C would go. Otherwise, with it spaced that far apart, it looks more like you just forgot to put in the extra ledger line and you really did want it to be an F. But we know we want G, B, D there. And if it was a 5/7 chord, that would be lovely. So like I said, really little things. I think as far as your understanding of everything, we are totally good to go. So for next time, we'll go right on to 42 and 43. This is dealing a lot more with inversions. So we were focused a lot on the primary triads before. Now we're going to be getting written practice with the inversions, something that we've been playing for quite a while. So they kind of outline how the root position chord transfers into first and second inversion for you at the top of 42. All they want you to do, and they give you lots of keys for different examples here, but 42 and 43, it's just all the same thing. For each key that they give you, you're going to draw in the root position chord, and then the same chord in first inversion, and then second inversion. So The pitfalls to watch for here, they have you switching between treble and bass clef. So you do need to make sure that you check your clef for each example. You also are not given any key signatures on this page. So you can do it one of two ways. If you want, you can just draw in the key signature and then you don't have to worry about any sharps or flats the rest of the time. You can just do all of your whole notes and everything will be right because you have whatever you need in the key signature. Or you can apply what you need to each individual chord like you did on the previous two pages. It does not matter to me. If you want, you can even try some each way. It doesn't even have to all be that you do each example the exact same way. The important thing is that you get all the sharps and flats that you need one way or the other, and that you're consistent throughout each example. So if you get to, for example, the G major one, you don't actually have any sharps or flats in that example because in the G major chord, your notes will be G, B, and D, right? You have no F sharp in any of those chords because they just want the G chord, right? And that's it. It doesn't have any sharps or flats. So it would probably be easier at that point to just draw in your triads and you're good to go. However, if you do the key signature route, you'll put in an F sharp even though you wouldn't have any Fs in the G chord. So it doesn't matter whichever way it makes more sense to you to do that, then I would just stick with that. So you'll either want to show all the sharps and flats on whichever notes need them throughout the chords, or just fill in your key signatures and then you don't have to worry about it on the actual chord notes. Okay, let's see. Sight reading example was fantastic. So I don't know if that was like, I wasn't totally sure, I think, reading what you had said in the email, but if that was your first time actually going to play it after looking through and kind of analyzing your information, you pretty much had it perfect. I mean, there was slight, if I was to be completely picky, then there was slight hesitation on, I think, 2 notes. But as far as sight reading, that's essentially the best you could hope for. So super excited about that. That was fantastic. So keep up that same process. Like I said, the examples in this book will, uh-oh, I've got low battery. Well, we're gonna cross our fingers. Okay. The examples in this book are going to progressively now introduce more challenging concepts. So some of them may take you a little longer, but I'm so happy with that one. That was really, really good. Let's see, I think I do want to continue to see an example each lesson as long as we're doing lessons this way. So when you send your stuff for, let's see, today is the 17th. Yeah, so we will have another lesson this way on the 31st. So still include an example of the sight reading for that as well. We'll stick with the A natural and harmonic minor scales. I do still want to hear the A natural minor scale, especially since you've still been working on it. And then remember, we're also going to take a look at the harmonic minor scale. And the only difference is we change the G natural to a G sharp. So all of your fingering and all the other notes stay the same, but we end up with more of that kind of Middle Eastern feeling vibe with the harmonic minor, because we raise the G from a G natural to a G sharp. Okay, so we will keep that for our technique. Hand in number 15, I still want to try and transpose that to the key of G, which just means that you're going to start playing on G instead of on C. You'll still go a full 2 octaves, but you'll also have an F sharp instead of an F natural, which will kind of alter where your hand position needs to be as far as how deep you are within the keys, and which may make how you would normally play it, that kind of positioning, you may need to rotate your wrist a little bit more, or just make some minor adjustments in order for that to still feel comfortable, since we're throwing a black key into the mix there to play it in the key of G. Keep singing. I'm very much looking forward to hearing that. Good luck with the playing and singing. That's always exciting. And helpful to know that you have space to just kind of work through it on your own. I always hated that about practice rooms in college, is you could never really just have the chance to make mistakes and just see what happens, because someone's always listening in the practice room next door. So definitely makes a big difference to how effective your practice is when you know you can just focus on what you need to do and not care that anyone's listening. All right, and then the Sonatina. Yes, we will go ahead and start that. So I do want you to try and take a look at that on your own this week. I think that with the skill that we've built up at this point with analyzing music and with figuring out the best approach for you, like I think I said this in the previous video, it's funny that Beethoven is going to kind of be this easier option. We don't usually think of it that way, but I do think, especially compared to some of the Dietmar arrangements, this will feel a lot easier. The only thing, and I don't know if I covered this last week, so my memory is kicking, but I don't think I covered the grace note, and I did want to just touch on that briefly because I don't really think we've encountered that before. So the grace note, if you notice, the first time we see that is in the very first measure for right hand. So you end up, oh, good, it's going well. You end up with your first half note on G, and then you have this fun little friend here right before you get to your 4 eighth notes to finish the measure. Now what's interesting is your time signature is this C, which stands for common time, which is also 4/4. Right? It's just another way to write it. So we know we want 4 beats in the measure, and the quarter note gets 1 count. Well, your half note gets 2, and then this first pair of eighth notes gets 1, and the second pair of eighth notes gets 1. So you already have your 4 counts without including this little grace note. And that's important to remember because your grace note will not actually take up any rhythmic space within the song. You almost want to think of it as kind of like a little transition note from point A to point B. We're not leaving any space for it. We just want to kind of throw it on right before we get to the first eighth note as a little bit of like extra introductory flavor to the next phrase. So what you'll end up with for that first measure is 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then continue on into measure 2. But you can hear that eighth note comes right in on the downbeat of beat 3. So again, we don't want 1, 2, 3, and then we've kind of added this extra weird half a count thing for the grace note. The grace note is just a little bit of a brrrm right before we get to the eighth note. That's the technical explanation. So there you go. You got a couple of those for your right hand. They do show you specifically which note should be played for the grace note. It is rather microscopic. You have to lean in, but you still want to follow where the note head is. That will make clear to you again, even though it's super tiny, which note they actually want to take the grace note. It's always a specific note there. And I would, if I were you, just start with the first 2 lines, break down each hand by itself, and then go through and start trying to assemble hands together. And then if you are still wanting something extra to fill in practice time, take a look at the next section. But that first 2 lines, that's a good little section to begin with, and should give you a nice idea of the melody, even though I think you are familiar with this one because I believe you had wanted to add it to what we were going to do in the future after hearing it. So we will get started on that. That means should have a good amount coming back to me for the 31st here, and I'll be able to give you a lot more in-depth feedback on that. And then I did want to ask if you want to start thinking about your preference for Christmas music, if you, because I believe, I don't think I've given you specifically any new Christmas music other than that Alfred Hitz book, which partially was we were using kind of for sight reading on the easier stuff, and then we never really moved forward too much with the other pieces in the back of the book. So if there's a specific song you'd like to do, please let me know and I will look for an arrangement for you. I know we had kind of started some other ones too last year. We had, I think, Mary Did You Know, and something else. I remember there were a lot of fifths and sixths or something like that, but I can't think of the song. Maybe it was Winter Wonderland. I don't know. Anyway, if you have stuff you would already like to get started on, that's perfectly fine. And if you have a specific piece that you'd like to do but don't have music for, just let me know and I will start looking. Okay. It's up to you. If you'd like to get started on that on the 31st, we can. I'm not starting to give out Christmas music until September, but that also means that I wouldn't see you, I think, until like September 13th to get started on that, which is almost halfway through the month. So we can start next time or the time after. Just depends on what you are wanting to do. Okay. Any questions, please let me know. But otherwise, happy practicing and have a great couple of weeks. I'll see you next time.